Hey, welcome again. We're here with Jenny Cheifetz. She is a life coach who uses breath work in her support of sports fans and sports stars and families, upcoming stars, I suppose. She specializes in helping people to have that extra help they need through the effects of living a heavily sports centered life. And she has recently expanded into using breath work as well. So we're glad to have you because I know a lot of people listening will have kids in sports and need to know maybe how far they should, or maybe know what will be required of them if they want to keep proceeding down that route. But first, can we back up and just start with your background, where you grew up and who you are and how you came to do what you're doing?
Yeah. Hi, Jeannie. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So my name is Jenny, and wow, I really appreciate being on the show. Um, I grew up in New England, born and raised, and been here most of my life. And I love sports. I have not always been involved as an athlete, but I've just always loved and appreciated from the sidelines. I was involved when I was told to be. um, I enjoyed it a little bit. I've always liked tennis. That was kind of my go-to. I always took lessons as a kid and participated on school teams, and I was a skier most of my life. If you follow the trend, I liked the individual sports. Um, I always felt a bit of pressure on team sports. Kind of felt like I couldn't carry my weight, so I felt that pressure that I didn't. Um, I couldn't help the team out as much, and then felt responsible if I, got the ball and then didn't score, or didn't pass it to the right person, or flubbed if it was given to me, and then if it was field hockey and then I botched it, or just kind of fumbled it around, or if it was basketball, I shot and then it hit the rim, or air ball. I just kind of blew it with team sports. So I stuck with tennis, stuck with skiing, but never good enough to pursue anything long term. So I stuck with the recreational version, and certainly loved my role as a fan, and just pursued that version really well. And then grew my love of football, American football, um, and as a fan also. Um, I twisted and turned in my career choices, found my way into entrepreneurship once I had children, and tried to do a few different roles. Stuck with baking for quite a few years. Did a home-based company for over 10 years, and then coincidentally decided to close up shop right before the pandemic hit. So that was just, yeah, the stars aligned there. I couldn't have timed that better. And then while in lockdown, I started working with a life coach for personal reasons, and just, I don't know, I got a nudge from the universe that this was something for me, that this was a path I wanted to travel. And so I got certified in life coaching, and the woman who certified me also certified in breath work. And so I decided to do that course of study with her, and that was it. That was the universe's design for me. And all along the way, I was still an avid sports fan. And so it just seemed like I needed to somehow commingle my love of sports and my passion for coaching and supporting folks who had gaps and had the same I guess yearning for guidance that I did. And so I figured somehow marry the two.
A very unique combination.
Yeah.
When we, when we first spoke and we were talking back and forth, and you said, well, I like to coach families who have kids that are going through sports and are growing up and going through that. And I thought, I have never heard of somebody who has specialized to that degree before in life coaching. And I want to know, how does that actually work? Like when you, first off, how do you find those families that need your help? And secondly, who in the family do you help? Is it I know a lot of moms do a lot of the chauffeuring and the helping and the buying and the supporting and the cheering, all of that. Is it the whole family? Is it individuals? But just give
Yeah.
us a little bit of a rundown.
Yeah. Good questions. So let's see. Let's see, what was the first question? So how do I find people? It's a lot of different ways. I mean, luckily we live in a digital world, so a lot of it is online. It's social media, it's Instagram, it's Facebook, it's email blasts, it's um, finding people through those methods. It's word of mouth. It's putting that information out into the hands, the eyes of people I know. And it's podcasts. That's another option. As far as who, it's the athlete, and it could be a teen athlete or a college age athlete. Younger than that is not likely. I don't want to say it's not possible, but typically the buy-in has to be there. And so the buy-in usually takes place at an older age, someone who's so committed to their sport that they're committed to the work. And so I think back to when I was in high school. One of my closest friends was on the junior tennis tour. I mean, she was planning to go pro had it not been for an injury in college. She was working with a sports psychologist, and this was back 30 years ago, years before it was so commonplace. She bought in. She bought in at 15 or 16. And so that's not likely to happen at 12 or 13. Someone who's buying into the workouts, the nutrition, the sleep hygiene. So, someone who's thinking about college recruiting, someone who's really thinking about, what it takes to be an elite athlete. So the athlete, also the parents. A lot of parents are conflicted, they're challenged, they're struggling with the strain of who's going where, if it's I don't know what it's like in the UK or in Australia, New Zealand, but in the States, club teams are so common. So you've got families that are going out of state, cross country, over on weekends. And so the travel, the financial strain, they're not taking family vacations. they're going on family trips to tournaments. Their kids are not necessarily going to summer camps for recreation. They're going to summer camps for building skills and conditioning. So these are costly, and it's a family commitment. And so that family is deciding as a unit, we're all doing this sport. And yeah, and so that family is not necessarily having family game night playing Scrabble. They're having family game night going to lacrosse. And so that family might need some help meditating, some help doing breath work, because they are feeling so amped up because Timmy lost his game earlier today. And what does that mean? Are the scouts not going to be looking at Timmy? What does that mean for their future? Have all of their, finances gone into a lost cause? What does that mean for their future? Yeah, this is serious stuff. And so for those of us who don't have kids in this, in this activity, our kids play piano or our kids do volunteer work, we might be sitting back thinking, give me a break. This is ridiculous. It's just lacrosse. We're not invested in this. So we might think nothing of it. But for the families that have invested tens of thousands, if not more, dollars and hours and tears into this, and maybe injuries, let's not forget the physical injuries and the recovery and the rehab that's gone into it. There's a lot to take into consideration, and these families need some. Here in my breath, they need to breathe, they need to exhale, and they need to learn how to self-care. And I'm not talking about a manicure.
Yeah.
It's more than a massage. It's how do we take care of the body from the inside.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was the long-winded answer.
That's okay. So from listening to what you just said, it sounds to me, I can almost picture everything you spoke about, the money, the time, the stress, all of that, like a huge funnel. And the tip of the funnel, what everything comes down to and creates most pressure, is the child athlete, or the not child, teenager, the one who is actually performing. The injuries, it feels like it could easily be an overwhelming pressure.
Yeah.
So is that where you come in then?
Yeah. It's I guess I shouldn't say student. It's not always a student. It could be, it's most likely a student. But yeah, the kid feels enormous pressure to do well, and it's a huge burden to carry. And I mean, I've even heard kids say, and I don't even know if I mentioned the mental component of, I've heard kids say, I can't miss practice because then coach won't play me. So if a kid is feeling overwhelmed about upcoming academic components, it doesn't matter. It's I can't study for that test. I can't take practice. I can't tell coach I need to study for that test or work on that project, because if I miss practice, then I won't get played in Friday night's game. And so there's a whole lot of factors coming into into play, and it's just a swirling storm
How
of
does that
stuff.
how does that go with like you were talking about academics? I know they have to keep up academic standards or else they're not eligible for sports teams as well. Do you find some parents tend to want to step in and supplement or just do for that student so the student can devote themselves to the whatever sport it is they've chosen. Do you find that that sometimes happens? And if it does, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think there's different. Um, I think there's a whole lot of different things that go on. I mean, there are certainly a lot of elite athletes are such superstars. I mean, I should probably use quotes for that because they are such well-oiled machines at this point that they have a system. They I know one athlete that I've spoken to that it is hard for me to believe. I mean, I do believe it, but it was hard for me to believe at first. She doesn't watch TV. She, at least not during her primary sports season, she just doesn't. She is all business, and she is taking all high level classes because she's on a mission to go to a an elite institution, whatever, uh, whatever we call it, a college, an advanced um, academic institution. So she has a system for her academics, so she's getting it done. But then I think you also have the students who are getting help from their parents, getting assistance at home. Then you have those certain kids who are getting a free pass at school. Okay, there are teachers who are maybe excusing certain things. That was the star football player, so we're going to cut him some slack. Excuse certain errors or kind of grade him on a curve. So I think there's just a lot of things going on, a lot of different scenarios. And then that there are kids that are getting tutors and getting, like, they're getting help because they can't, if they're going to so many games and going to so many tournaments, they can't possibly. I mean, our at my own kids' high school, when there's ski, my daughter's on the ski team. When there's ski races and they have to get to the mountain for ski races, they have to miss the last period of the day. So, okay, they're missing the last period of the day for every race. How is that possible that those kids are missing a certain number of classes for that entire winter season? And not, I mean, for my daughter, that would mean a lab science. How is that possible? How do you possibly miss a lab science and not, I mean, what do you do? What do you do? How do you make that up? That's not something, that's not like, not that I'm diminishing other subjects, but if it's English, maybe you could read the book on your own. But how do you make up a lab on your own? How are you doing that? So it's definitely an interesting quandary.
So you're helping them. Do you help them come up with sort of customized plans for their situation and their sport and their life and get it all? Well, I know for myself, when I'm involved in something and I'm very passionate about it, the first thing that goes is any sort of what would you call it? Some recreational TV, any of that. That's instantly gone. And I find I don't miss it because I'm so fulfilled in what I'm doing. So I can relate to that student and what she was saying. Do you help them to come up with a plan to help them have that combination of, well, it's hard to, I guess it had to be really personalized, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Really, because
If that's what they want. I don't love to think of myself as an accountability coach or a strategy coach. I mean, that's not, I don't love to think of myself that way. Really, what I come in with is, and I probably wouldn't market myself because I don't think a kid would appreciate this, but I like to come in with the touchy-feely stuff. That's my strength. Because I think there's other people that that are better at the strategy. What I would excel at is that emotional component, what they're not going to get elsewhere. Because what they really do need is to slow down, to pause, and to check in with their bodies. Because that's not what they're doing when they're go, 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 go at practice, at shuttling around to all their different tournaments and, running through the drive-through. And that's what they're doing. They're running around so much. They're not checking in with themselves. And I mean, they're like ships passing in the night with their family members. And what they need to do is kind of assess, what are we doing? How are we feeling with the different members of their family? And just kind of stop and kind of do a body scan of what's going on, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? Because when they do that, and I actually did this with my son recently. My son's 18 and he's a senior in high school and he's applying to college. And that's a big decision, needing to decide, where do you want to go? What's your first choice? And it's an important decision. And I said, how are you equipped to make that decision, that big, bold, huge decision? So if you're going to make a huge decision like that, you need to, I think that it's a visceral, intuitive decision. So how do you know what your body's feeling if you've never checked in with your body? We all have an intuition, okay? So, and I just learned this a few years ago when I started doing this personal growth work. Have you ever heard someone say, I don't think I have an intuition? Like, I don't know what my body's feeling.
I think, well, most people that I've spoken to would just say they felt something. They wouldn't really question it one way or other. They'd just say, oh, I had that feeling. Yeah.
Right. When I started doing personal growth work, I had been so numb for so long. Like I'd felt so uncomfortable in my body for so many years.
Mm.
And for a lot of people who've had trauma or gone through rough times, if you don't want to use the T word, if you've gone through uncomfortable times, you don't feel safe in your body. You numb out, you have your numbing out options, whether it's food, shopping, social media, overwork. Okay, we all have our athletics, staying busy with sports. We all have ways to avoid feeling uncomfortable things. So we need to find a way to check in with our bodies. So I said, a good way to do that, start checking in with yourself, feeling your intuition, is to start asking yourself basic questions, basic yes/no questions that you already know the answer to. But you could say to yourself, like, do I love pizza? Okay, you know the answer to that. That's going to be a strong yes or no. But notice in your body where you feel that. Something's going to light up. Do you feel it in your gut? Do you feel it in your heart? Do you feel it in your face? Does your throat light up? Just something like, do you feel that somewhere? Okay. and you could do that with other questions, like, is there like do you have a best friend? Do you have a boy at school you like? Do you have a favorite TV show? Do you have a special place? Like, do you love the beach? Okay, so you start asking yourself those, and you can get these intuitive hits. Then you can go with that more significant question. And then you can start asking that those sports questions, like do I want to go to this tournament? Do I want to sign up for this team? Is this too much? Is this extra practice? Too much for me? Is this, should I call out for this game? Do I really need to be doing double sessions? And you can start assessing whether you're taking too much on. And you can do this as a family. That's the kind of work I would rather do versus, let's take a look at your calendar and block out time, or, meal prep, or, I would rather be doing that, the somatic work.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I think that because instead of figuring out how do I juggle everything, figure out what do I want to juggle in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So it sounded kind of like, it made me think of a polygraph as you were talking. You start with those introductory, easy questions just to get you used to
Yeah.
your body, and then move into the things that are more consequential.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it.
So
Right.
is that what you would do with a session? Was that just the general outline of a session that you would do with somebody?
That could be something that we
Part of
do.
it?
But once we figure out how we want to work together, what I really like to do, well, I shouldn't have an agenda, is really what it comes down to. It's really determined by the client what you would like to do with me. But one tool is breath work. I mean, that is a favorite tool that I bring to the table. And it is a very powerful tool. That's why it's one of my favorites, and one that I like to encourage clients at least try, because it's just such, the reason it's so powerful is because it doesn't involve us talking about anything. It's you and your body, and then I just guide a session. So it really just allows the client, the breather, to have their own journey and do what needs to be done and have their own experience.
So I have actually taught a few breathing courses myself, and I remember years ago I read Breath by James Nestor, and it changed my whole.
Yes.
It really did. Wonderful book.
Yep.
And I love using breath work. I think it's wonderful. However, if someone was listening just now and they just heard what you said, they're going to think it sounds a bit ungrounded. There was nothing solid that they can say, okay, this is what it's going to do.
Yeah.
So it's hard to explain, because it's something that you, like you said, you experience it
Yeah.
in your body, and it can
Yeah.
actually release trauma.
Yeah.
You can't really explain that. But maybe we could give it some solid, maybe we could advocate for it in a really solid way so people can understand what the actual benefits are, instead of, it's hard to try to capture feelings into words. But maybe we
Yeah.
could try a little bit to advocate for breathwork.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, because it's like, it's hard to explain how fun dancing is if you've never been dancing. It's hard to explain if you've never jumped off the end of a diving board and cannonballed into a pool. That free feeling of of going off the end of a diving board. I mean, maybe you've seen people do that so you could have a visual, but that experience of jumping into a pool, if you've never done that, you just don't know how that feels and how fun it is. So there's a lot of things in life that if you've never done, you just don't know how incredible it is, that you just have to do. But lying, and there's different options for a breathwork session, but lying on a floor or lying on a bed, wherever you want to lie comfortably, and I create a unique playlist of music that is tailored to the client's intention. And what that means is, if a client says, I want to feel more calm, I want to feel more happy, I want to feel like I want to beat the snot out of my coach. I want to break free from my coach. I feel like my coach has a too strong of a grip on me, and I want to feel, that's what I mean. If I feel like my coach has a too strong of a grip on me and I want to feel freer, that can be a real sensation that someone wants to feel. I want to feel more powerful. I want to feel more, you get the idea. Like it's a feeling that you would like to bring into your system. Okay, I want to feel like a champion. Then I would choose songs to encapsulate that. I would also choose a breath pattern. Okay, so for the listeners, we all breathe throughout the day. And the problem is, not only do our bodies breathe for us, but when we're stressed out, a lot of times our bodies are holding our breath in many stressful situations. But when we are breathing, we're shallow breathing. We're almost hyperventilating in stressful situations.
So we're using is it the top third of our lungs when we're in that, usually around there? It's definitely not the full lung capacity.
Oh, absolutely not. We are not deep diaphragmatic breathing, for sure. And so what we want to do is and we're doing it in a very tense way, with our bodies in a rigid, tense posture, which is just so uncomfortable. So many of us, by the end of the day, we feel our bodies hurt. And it's for the parents too, who might not have even done a workout that day. All they did was sit in the bleachers. Their bodies hurt. And it's because their shoulders were up at their ears, and their hands were clenched, their jaws were clenched, and they were shallow breathing.
Well, it sounds like they did a static workout in the bleachers.
Right. They weren't even doing anything, but because of their terrible posture, their terrible, body position, and their terrible breathing, their bodies hurt. So we're lying completely relaxed, listening to the music that goes with the intention they want to bring in. And I suggest a breath pattern that aligns with that. And so the breath pattern could be as simple as just a deep inhale through the nose and a deep exhale from the mouth. It could be as simple as that, or it could be something that's strictly nose breathing, strictly mouth breathing. It will depend on their intention, but there are a variety of patterns that people aren't even aware of, that you can mix up the way you breathe. And we will do that for a period of time. It could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And the idea is to get out of our busy, chaotic, constantly ruminating, negative mind chatter, and just drop into the body. That is the point. And when we do that, we just allow the body to take over. That's it. We don't have an agenda. I certainly don't have an agenda as the facilitator. And I invite the breather to the only agenda, and I have air quotes, is to welcome in the intention of whatever they chose. So if it's to feel like a champion, let's say, then I would suggest a mantra. I desire to feel like a champion. That would be this, the simplest version, something like that. And that's it.
Yeah, breath work is, like you said, there's so many different types that you can do, and they can help in a lot of different ways. But it sounds like it's really good for these super hyper busy families and
Yeah.
athletes to
Yeah.
just, yeah, to regain that breath and relax. I think people underestimate because, like you said, in our world, we're so tense so much of the time. But if you never relax, you never have the opposite. You can never fully go at your full peak if you don't relax. If that makes sense. You've got to have the back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the parents that are doing all of the shuffling and feeling so responsible, they might have a totally different session, and it might be, I allow, I surrender, their session might be just a surrendering,
Mm.
an allowing of what will be to be. Or, I love my child. I love, my life. I accept an acceptance of this chaos. I choose this life.
So have you ever had a client, a family where something has happened that has been career ending, that that athlete can't carry on? And what kind of advice, I know it is going to be, I feel like it would be an actual legitimate grieving period they'd have to go through, not just the athlete, but the family as well, because like you said, all the time and effort going into that. And that's obviously going to be an actual grieving process. But how would you support a family, or have you supported a family who's had to go through that?
Um, so I haven't personally experienced that yet. From the sidelines, I am witnessing. So she's not my client, but I am watching, as I see an athlete that is getting ready to tell her family that she is ready to throw in the towel. She's had enough, and it is definitely, she's playing through high school, but she is ready to be done. She doesn't want to pursue the sport in college. And it's an interesting thing to watch, because after everything the family has invested, again, time and money, I think the family expected it to be their, gravy train to college. And with her ability, I'm sure she could have gotten a scholarship. So it is definitely an interesting thing to watch play out. And it's it's hard on the parents because I'm sure they did not anticipate paying for college. Um, I'm sure they expected their daughter to continue playing and get a scholarship, and they'd be off the hook for paying for college. But she's had enough. She has had enough, and it's unfortunate, really, because I know the girl loves the sport, but she's just so physically and emotionally taxed and over balancing the athletics and the academics and the social, trying to fit in, seeing some friends every now and then, which is nearly impossible. And so for her, and I did ask her about it because she and my daughter are friendly. And so I did quietly ask her about it. And she said, I just can't imagine doing this for 4 more years at a college level. And it was illuminating for sure.
I, what advice would you have for parents who say their child comes, or say there's an injury, or for some reason they are no longer, because some people will just identify as I am whatever athlete, right? That is what
Yes,
I am. And
yes.
that identity is taken away. That
For
those
sure.
parents, like,
Yes.
yeah,
So years ago, before I mean, years and years ago, I was a classroom teacher 20 years ago, and I knew this situation. So we had a family friend whose son at the time was playing football at a very elite college. He had been recruited from a local high school, and he was playing at an elite college. Huge kid. I mean, he was, a linebacker or something, and he was no question gonna go pro. No question. This kid was that good, that huge, and there was no question this kid had the goods. And he got injured, and I mean, like crushing injury, crushing, I mean, career ending injury. And he was on a team with someone who did go pro and went pro, like we're talking Super Bowl, legit Super Bowl winning pro. um and they had dreams. It was one of those, it could bring a tear to my eye, one of those stories where they were high school friends who both went to college, and those kinds of stories where they were going to make it together, and they were going to both win Super Bowl rings together and then live happily ever after as best friends. And the best friend got his Super Bowl ring, and this kid got a rotator cuff injury and ended up selling software. And it broke that family. I mean, obviously they recovered, but they put everything into this kid growing up. I mean, from Pop Warner all the way through college, they hadn't missed a game. And so they were there the day that this injury happened. And it's like what you saw in Jerry Maguire when they saw Rod on the field, and it's like, get up, baby, get up, baby. And he that was it. That was the injury that ended his career. And it was just, for that family, it was like, oh no, he's not going pro. He's not going to make millions of dollars. He's not going to win a Super Bowl. And now he's, like you said, he's not a football player anymore. So who is he? And he had to go back to his dorm room and look in the mirror and figure out, I've been a football player for the last 15 years of my life. Who am I? And, I don't know if he got himself a therapist to figure out, who am I now? I imagine he probably did, because he'd never been or done anything else but football since he was, 5 years old. And yeah, so
That's
I,
really
I I haven't encountered that yet, but I'm sure it'll come.
so. My question would be as well, though. The injury is one thing, but with your friend that you're watching, where she's electively choosing to opt out of that,
Yeah.
the potential emotional danger that I can see for her parents is a resentment, perhaps, of we've done all this,
Yeah.
and when you have a brand new baby, you love that baby just because they are them. But after a while of doing something so intensely for so long, it can sometimes become, well, my child is this, and it could be hard for them to get back to, I love my child because they're my child,
Mm.
as their self instead of the other identity. So I think that'd be a hard thing, and how you would support someone to say, I love my child regardless of if they're playing this sport that I paid thousands and thousands of dollars for them to do.
Yeah. 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 I mean, and that's, yeah, that is something that I will be curious to see play out, because yeah, like you said, I mean, they've invested so much, they've gone to so many games and tournaments, and every weekend it seems to be a different state, a different event. And to hear her say, I just don't want to do it anymore, I've had enough. And to know that the parents probably expected that to be one child they didn't have to pay for. It will definitely be interesting.
Oh, there's so many different thoughts I have about what you just said, but I think there could be a lot of ways that you look at it. I think a lot of it comes down to when your expectations and your reality don't match up. So if they're expecting not just the financial part of it, which is a huge part, but also they say we expected all of this to have fruition in whatever manner, and now you just told us that it won't. To then say, instead of we did all these things so that we would get this result, you could say, well, we made a lot of good family memories, you know,
Yeah.
and be happy for what you did do. I think you'd have to have a mindset shift, I think, to
Oh,
navigate through that.
yeah. Yeah. That's a nice reframe.
Yeah, because otherwise, oh my goodness, you could have so much sadness, and it wouldn't be good for anybody. So, yeah.
No, I mean, I would hate to want to push my child into something knowing that you're
Mhm.
only adding more stress and pressure on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing something they clearly don't want to do anymore.
Well, I guess it would come back to the parents' motivations and priorities, because do they want their child to do that? Because what I always tell my children is, I want you to be a happy person and have a happy life. And if that means you're doing university, then that's great. If it means you're doing your own business, that's great. If it means you're a full-time parent, then that's great. But I want you to be happy. So my priority is that. But sometimes it can also become easy to prioritize, I want my child to excel at this because that will reflect well on me,
Mm,
or it will make me feel like I'm involved in something that I could never personally achieve on. So I guess it depends what the parents'
yeah.
desires and motivations are. I suppose that's why it's so personal and why they need a coach through those sort of things.
Yeah. That's very, that's all very telling.
Oh no, what have I told you about? All
That's
right, well,
good.
thank you so much. So where can people find you online? Gentle Coaching, is that correct? With a J?
Yes. Yes. With a J for Jenny. Yes.
Is it gentlecoaching.com?
Yes. I try to make it easy. It's
Okay.
gentlecoaching.com. It's gentle coaching on Instagram. Yes. Try to streamline
Universally,
it.
gentle coaching. Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Yes.
Well, we will
Yes.
link you below, so that people can click the link below and find out or contact if they need more information or more coaching, and to create that. I guess I think it sounds cheesy almost to say it, or maybe not cheesy, but just overused to say create the space. But what it is creating, carving out a time to really let your body relax and let your brain relax and connect with what you're actually wanting to do. So you don't just run wild constantly, but you actually have some
Right.
time. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
Thanks, Jeannie.